Are Christians in any way oppressed or persecuted? There are places in the world where being a Christian absolutely sucks. There are places in the world where being Christian is dangerous. The United States is not one of those places. Not in the US, no. In Iran, Afghanistan, China, North Korea and other countries, absolutely yes. Outside of the West, yeah. Quite a lot. Even up to killings and church burnings, aka Roman style. In United States? I guess people say mean things about Christians. Sometimes. There is opposition of Christians in other countries, mostly where Christianity is a minority religion. In the United States, Christianity seems to enjoy favored status among religions and is nowhere close to being oppressed. People that believe that generally want Christianity to be the official state religion of the U.S. and view anything short of that as oppression. I'm a Christian that lives in the U.S. But I've traveled and lived overseas and seen the persecution that Christians in other countries experience and even felt fear of it for myself in some countries. There is no persecution or oppression of Christianity that I am aware of in the U.S. Of course, there could be some small communities where you could be in the minority and singled out in bad ways here, but this would be an extremely rare thing in the U.S. and I've never heard of it. Here in the U.S. there is never a moment that I'm afraid of declaring my faith. I'm not afraid for my job, not afraid for my life, not afraid of being arrested, not afraid of being put under surveillance, and not afraid of people harassing me. It just doesn't happen. Not everyone likes Christians. And personally I understand that. There are a lot of Christians I don't like. Some people don't like Christianity and will say that to me. And some of them may even call me names for it. Never happened to me. But it could happen. That's just not scary or oppressive though. That's normal human interaction in a society with freedom of speech and freedom of religion. If someone says that I'm dumb for believing in God, they aren't oppressing me. They aren't persecuting me. They're just expressing their opinion and I can either walk away or ask them to tell me why they think that. I have a lot of friends who are atheist, agnostic as well as other faith backgrounds. People in the US are usually incredibly respectful about me saying I'm a Christian or else just like no reaction at all. Unfortunately, that's not true for people who aren't Christian. Atheists, Muslims and Jews all receive a lot of disrespect and hate in this country. It's still better than a lot of other countries. But I think we could do so much better since one of the country's foundational principles was religious freedom. Anyway, when people say silly things about being oppressed for being a Christian, the first thing you could say, "Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to share about what happened to you? Are you still afraid? Is there anything I can do to help you?" Quote. If they say something about things happening to other people, just act confused and ask how that has them feeling oppressed. If they say something about a store employee saying happy holidays, ask if the employee did something rude or complained about people saying Merry Christmas. If they make a claim that someone in their work or a public official said something oppressive, ask if they're planning to report this to the proper authorities. You will call their bluff in the kindest way possible and make them look as silly as they are being. Maybe they will understand and get quiet, or maybe they will get confused and change the topic out of frustration. Either way, win-win. Asking these types of intentionally obtuse questions with full sincerity is my favorite way of taking the wind out of the sails of ignorant or bigoted people, since it spoils all their fun. They are looking for agreement or argument, not concern. Don't give them what they want. There is an organization called the Voice of the Martyr that documents Christian persecution. It definitely exists and on a fairly large scale. But then you have American Christians who believe persecution means a fake college professor being owned by a student in a movie called God's Not Dead. Why they make fictional movies about persecution when the real thing is happening all over the world is beyond me. Well, I take that back. The real persecution doesn't have a happy ending that shows God to be a hero. So movies about it are, at best, a downer, and at worst, cause people to leave their faith. TLDR. Look at the wiki entry. Christianity is the dominant faith in the US with 210 million adherents. If they are being oppressed, they are doing it to themselves. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Christianity in the United States. Places of Christian oppression are fairly small in number, but the impact can range from not getting preferential treatment but being otherwise left alone, to paying different taxes, to being social outcasts, or even to being actively hunted by the local or national officials and jailed or executed. Rare, but it happens in places. Usually these things occur in places you would expect, like Afghanistan or Iran. Also, there is persecution in China, but it may be different than in some more severe locations. But in Europe and North and South America it is the dominant religion, and as such Christians dominate politics and business, so they are the ones mostly pulling the levers and calling the shots. In the government and economy, the West is also the most powerful bloc of nations in the world, so it can be argued that Christians have the most power collectively in the world as well, though that can also be argued against. Just look around in the US at how many churches there are. Here in the South they are everywhere, practically on every corner. And you can't have a single election without multiple candidates touting what big Christians they are. They dominate local, county, and state government. I've even had salesmen tout what big Christians their company owners are, in a hope that would sway my purchase decision. Hell, it's such a big deal in the South that an Alabama Supreme Court justice erected a monument to the Ten Commandments and had it placed in the entrance to the supposedly unbiased court building. And people nearly voted him into the U.S. Senate because of it, and allegations he slept with a young teenager only swayed some of them to not vote for him. Regarding the TLDR about them oppressing themselves, this is actually a very, very common talking point in fascist circles, and there is a lot in modern Christianity, as opposed to traditional Christianity, that is very aligned with fascist thinking. For example, where traditional Christianity advocated giving heavily to the poor and being quiet about your faith, modern evangelical Christianity is often heavily into what is called prosperity gospel, which is summed up in the cartoon of Supply Side Jesus. Google it to see what I mean. Traditional Christianity had people living in communes and sharing property, while modern Christianity is pro-corporation. Fascism is a merger of government and corporate control. Modern Christians dominate government and believe in corporate control. So there is a huge overlap between modern Christians and fascist thought, even though most won't realize it at first. The claim that they are being oppressed is a long-standing trope of fascist-aligned thought, and it is actively used by fascist leaders to drum up the passions of the people to commit heinous acts. I recommend reading the essay Fascism by world-renowned author Umberto Eco, who actually grew up under a fascist government. He outlines a set of characteristics of fascism, and the oppression myth is one that is central. All of the items are relevant to U.S. politics today, but these two are most relevant to this discussion. 7. The obsession with a plot. The followers must feel besieged. The easiest way to solve the plot is the appeal to xenophobia. 8. The enemy is both weak and strong. Quote, the followers must be convinced that they can overwhelm the enemies. Thus, by a continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. The entire essay is short and easy to read, but here is a summary that includes the list of characteristics. https www.fena.com/aleph/umbertocopracticalist for identifying fascists. For the past few centuries, Christianity has been assumed as the default in Western society. Our laws reflected the beliefs of Christianity, such as bans against homosexuality. Over the past few decades, our society has been shifting and going away from traditional Christian values. For a lot of Christians, no longer getting preferential treatment feels like oppression. Not in the US. But as an Assyrian, I can assure you they are oppressed in the Middle East and elsewhere. Especially in the United States? Absolutely not. LMAO, completely insane. It happens in some countries. Think about predominantly Muslim countries, or countries where freedom of speech, and therefore religion, is restricted. Ps. I'm an atheist myself. In some parts of the world, yes. In the United States? No. I've got friends and family that believe that Christianity is highly oppressed and persecuted all around the world, but especially the United States. There are absolutely places on earth where Christians are persecuted and oppressed. But it's usually in places where Christians make up a religious minority. In the United States, Christians are the religious majority. So oppression is unlikely. If you don't understand why Christians are not oppressed in the US, here are some examples. There has never been a US president who was not a Christian. Christians are allowed to practice Christianity openly, so long as it's not being practiced via a government facility like a courthouse or public school. Nobody has ever been jailed or punished under US law for being a Christian. Lots of Christians claim they are being persecuted when things they don't like are accepted in society, or when power is distributed more equally between different groups. For example, lots of Christians believe that there is a spiritual reason that homosexual relationships should be illegal. So when same-sex marriage was made federally legal in the USA, these same Christians claimed they were being oppressed. As the old saying goes, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality starts to feel like oppression. Christians are not oppressed in the USA. It's just that Christians have held power in the USA for such a long time. And now that some people are saying that power ought to be distributed more evenly, some Christians are claiming that this is oppression. It's not oppression. I would also like to clarify that not all Christians feel this way in the USA. I am not a Christian myself, but I have met many Christians who are comfortable with the USA being a melting pot of religious diversity, and who don't believe that the USA is a Christian nation. In the East? Yes. Extremist governments will kill people for deviating from Allah's teachings. This includes being Christian. In the U.S. Absolutely not. When's the last time we've had a non-Christian president? Or at least one that didn't claim they were Christian? Never. Christians have been in power here since the U.S. existed. Christianity just overlaps largely with conservatism. So many Christians gain the same persecution complex. In other countries, yes, but not in the US or any other predominantly Christian nation. Sure, restrictions on Christian religious practice exist in a lot of non-Christian countries with different state religions, like in the Islamic world or officially atheist countries like China. A lot of Christian countries give privileged status to their state church and restrict other Christians. Some secular countries impose restrictions on all religions. For example, the French ban on religious symbols in public affects Christians. Many countries have general laws that some Christians have religious objections to that are not accommodated, e.g. requiring attendance at schools with objectionable curricula and not allowing homeschooling or other alternatives. If someone thinks the situation for Christians is especially bad in the United States, they don't have a very realistic view. Even though our Constitution explicitly prohibits the establishment of a national religion, Christian politicians and politicians pretending to be, and pandering to, Christians claim they are being oppressed when they are stopped from imposing their beliefs on everyone else. I mean the hateful turn towards hypocrisy exhibited by U.S. American Christians over the past 50 years has definitely made Christians a laughingstock in most circles I have ever run in. Oppressed and persecuted? People have laughed at me and ridiculed me for my faith, but no one has ever told me I wasn't allowed to practice it or tried to hurt me for practicing it. I think some people who have never experienced oppression or persecution confuse popularity, or lack thereof, with oppression and ridicule for persecution. Globally? Absolutely. In the US? Nope. Worldwide it might be the most oppressed religion, but that's mainly because it's the biggest religion worldwide. In the West there's a lot of people who actively hate it and protest against it, but that isn't oppression.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.